Hello and welcome to another video. Today we are doing new releases for March 2021. So I did something a little bit interesting this month in that I made the list quite a while ago. And then before filming this, I went through the list again and was just like picking out books that I was going to put on my to buy list. And actually ended up deleting several of these books because I was like, I'm not talking about them. I want to keep this short if I can. So, yeah. This list got greatly reduced about 2 hours before filming. So, that being said, I have nothing in the YA category coming out in March that I give a damn about. Sci-fi and fantasy, I only have 2. First up is In the Quick by Kate Hope Day. It comes out March 2nd. We have this woman, her name is June. She gets a job as an engineer on a space station, and she discovers evidence that the crew of a spacecraft that went missing 6 years ago is still alive. She joins forces with this man who was her uncle's protege, and they form an intellectual bond that turns into attraction, and sure, why not? If I'm gonna read anything with like romancy stuff, I'd rather it go that route. Next is Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, also comes out March 2nd. This book is actually kind of a simple premise. You're following Klara, she is known as an artificial friend, and you're just reading about her observations from the store that she's living in while she's waiting to be purchased. Next, we're going into the mystery thriller category. The only one I have in this category is The Lost Village by Camilla Sten. It comes out March 23rd. In this book, we are following a documentary filmmaker who is obsessed with an old mining village called The Lost Village. All the residents disappeared in 1959, including the filmmaker's grandmother's family. As they're filming this documentary, unsettling things begin to happen on set. Very interested in that. I love stories where we're kind of following mysterious disappearances of like an entire town. Really, really interesting premise. As per usual, historical fiction is the largest section this month. The first up is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. It comes out March 2nd. I want to read this book so bad. First off, the cover, gorgeous. Second, it's following an apothecary who dispenses poisons to these women so they can rid themselves of horrible husbands. And that sounds amazing. Next up, we have The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. It comes out March 9th. We're following 3 women who worked at Bletchley Park during World War II. First of all, I think stories around Bletchley Park are fascinating. If you don't know, Bletchley Park was where essentially like the center of British intelligence code breaking was during World War II. Anyway, something happens. The 3 women are no longer friends. Now we're a few years post-war, and they get back in touch to solve a mystery by decrypting one last code together. Next up, we have Surviving Savannah by Patti Callahan. It comes out March 9th as well. In this book, the wreck of a ship known as the Titanic of the South is found, and a woman called Everly is asked to curate a museum collection with the artifacts that were found. The ship sank in 1838 with the elite of Savannah on board. And then Everly's research leads her to the amazing history of a family of 11 who were on that ship. I generally enjoy books where the basic premise is like a shipwreck being found. Anything really compared to the Titanic usually gets my interest, so I'm pretty into this. Okay, possibly the coolest book on this list, the one I want to read the most badly, The Ladies of the Secret Circus by Constance. It comes out March 23rd. Okay, cover, amazing. In this book, a woman finds her great-grandmother's journals and gets swept up in the story of this secret circus that was operating in Paris in the 1920s. And then there's also some kind of family curse aspect going on in this. Love a good book about a circus. Next up, we have Wild Women and the Blues by Denny S. Bryce, comes out March 30th. It's described as ordinary people meets Chicago. I adore Chicago. I've seen that movie several times, and I frequently get the songs stuck in my head to this day. This story takes place in 2015, and this film student called Sawyer Hayes meets the 110-year-old Honoré Dalcour, and Honoré tells Sawyer her story, which takes place in 1925 in Chicago. Next up, we have Libertie by Kaitlyn Greenidge. It comes out March 30th as well. Libertie Sampson grows up in Brooklyn in the Reconstruction era. Her mother wants her to follow in her footsteps and become a doctor, but Libertie is much more into music and the arts. She marries a man from Haiti and goes to live in Haiti with him, and she is under the impression that in Haiti they will be seen as equals. However, she discovers quickly when she gets there that she is just as much subservient to her husband and all the men there as she was in the United States. It says, perfect for readers of Britt Bennett, Minjin Lee, and Ya Jessie. 2 out of the 3 of those I have read recently and adored, so I am down for that. The last historical fiction book we have on this list is The Women of Chateau Lafayette by Stephanie Dray, also March 30th. Big day for books. This centers on a castle in France and the 3 women who lived in it, beginning in 1774, moving to 1914, and then ending in 1940. Very interested to see how those timelines will all connect. We only have 2 books in the fiction category, but both of them sound very interesting to me. First off, we have The Recent East by Thomas Grattan. This comes out March 9th. Shortly after the fall of the Berlin Wall, this woman who had immigrated to America years before is notified that she can reclaim her parents' mansion. As she has just been divorced, this comes at a really good time for her, so she takes her 2 teenage children and goes back to Germany. The city, however, is not exactly what she remembers, and living there, this sudden uprooting and moving to another country has some interesting effects on her teen children. I wasn't quite certain whether to put this in fiction or historical fiction, because I don't feel like the fall of the Berlin Wall was long enough ago that it should go in historical fiction. But at the same time, I guess it kind of is. I don't know. If anybody has any ideas on where I should draw that particular line, please let me know. The other book I have in fiction, Red Island House by Andrea Lee. It comes out March 23rd. A woman called Shay, her husband, builds her dream house in Madagascar, which sounds amazing. However, her privileged American upbringing soon collides with the connection to the continent of her ancestors. I'm just in general interested in that kind of a dynamic, so I will probably be picking this up. And let's see, okay, nonfiction. There's only a few here as well. First up, on March 2nd, we have Come Fly the World, the Jet Age Story of the Women of Pan Am by Julia Cook. This is a Mad Men-esque type of book that tells the stories of the incredible women who traveled the world as flight attendants. I am very interested in, well, really the Mad Men-esque type setting, as well as the whole, like, flight attendant thing, because back in the day, that was a pretty prestigious job. Next up, we have The Codebreaker, Jennifer Doudna, Gene Editing and the Future of the Human Race by Walter Isaacson. This comes out March 9th. This is a story about a woman who was part of the team that discovered CRISPR, and I love a good book about a woman in STEM. Plus, Walter Isaacson, pretty good author. Next up, we have The Disordered Cosmos, A Journey into Dark Matter, Space-Time, and Dreams Deferred by Chanda Prescott Weinstein. Now, okay, so I looked up Chanda Prescott Weinstein because I was curious about, well, just in general, I was curious. I'm not, because initially I was like, oh cool, it's written by a female theoretical physicist, that's awesome. However, according to the Wikipedia page, it says Prescott Weinstein is queer and agender, and I'm not totally sure what that means. And so I'm not totally sure how to refer to them. The article itself referred to Prescott Weinstein as she, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's correct because it was a Wikipedia article. So I don't know, I think I'm just going to go with them and or use their whole name until I figure that out. But either way, I'm down to read the story. The final book on this list, and I made it really short and sweet this month, is In Search of a Kingdom, Francis Drake, Elizabeth I, and the Perilous Birth of the British Empire by Lawrence Bergreen. Comes out March 16th. Pretty much anything involving Elizabeth I is a book that I want to read about, so that's more or less that. So let me know in the comments below any books that you are looking forward to that are coming out in March. I know there are a ton more than I put on my particular list. These are just the ones that I actually am probably going to buy at some point. If you're new here and you like my content, subscribe. Stick around. I'd love to see you in my comments. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye.